Hey everybody, thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff. We're Two Cities Church, and we are doing midweek worship. Hey, if you're new to our church, if this is a new experience for you and you want to know more about why we do midweek worship, why don't you look right below me in the notes? You'll see a link to a video which will tell you all about who we are and why we created this video format midweek service way back in the beginning of COVID. We are talking about our God who likes to enter into a relationship with people. We're actually using this word covenant, which you probably don't use in your everyday language. It's kind of a Bible word, but the Bible word covenant just means God entering into a formal agreement. It's actually like a contract. Think about it like an agreement for life, like marriage vows between God and the people that He created. Last week, I introduced you to the overarching concept of the covenant of grace, which means God's relationship with all people, all times, because He's a good God. He likes to give gifts, the greatest gift being the gift of grace, something that you and I can't earn, we don't deserve. Today, we're going to look at some specific kinds of gifts of grace, the covenant of grace from God. And the first one, probably not the first one, but maybe one of the most recognizable, it perhaps is the only one you can see with your own eyes, is the covenant that God entered into with Noah. Now, in order to explain to you the Noahic Covenant, or God's covenant with Noah and all people that ever came on earth after Noah, in order to help set us up for this, I think we should just get our hearts ready to hear from the Bible and to think about God. So in order to get our hearts ready, I want us to go ahead and sing a song. I've asked our friends from South Africa, Pete and Alicia, if they would lead us in a song. And so we're going to put that song on screen right now. Would you just go ahead and sing along right there in your living room or in your hotel room, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this. I hope this song encourages you and prepares your heart to hear from the Bible. Take it away, Pete and Alicia.
Everything you make is perfect, and everything you do is good, and everything in your hands perfect, and you made me. Yes,
Thanks, guys, for leading us in that music to worship Jesus, our King. Now, the covenant that God made with Noah, in order for you to understand how important this is for you today, because let's just be honest, you weren't around when this happened. I don't care who you are. Nobody was around when this moment happened. I've got to take you way back to the beginning of the Bible. You see, when God originally created the heavens and the earth, when people originally planted and lived and grew crops, there wasn't any rain in the sky. And then God's people rebelled against him. That rebellion is called sin. And by the way, you have sinned, I have sinned. All people that have ever come after the first human beings that he created, after Adam and Eve, have sinned. One day, sin got so bad that God decided, I'm going to restart everything. I'm going to wipe away all of the people, all of the animals, all of the creatures that crawl on the ground. I'm going to wipe them all away from the face of the earth. And I'm going to do it by sending rain and causing a flood. Up to this point, if you go back and read in the book of Genesis, up to Genesis chapter 6, at this point, the skies really have never rained down on people. Well, in Genesis chapter 6, God selects one family that he's going to preserve from all of the people of the earth. This is Noah, his wife, Noah's sons, and their wives. God tells Noah, I want you to build a big boat, Noah, because it's about to rain. And Noah says, rain? What is rain, God? I don't know what rain is. And God says, you're going to find out what rain is, Noah. Noah builds a boat, takes him a long time to build it. God causes the rains and the waters to open up and they flood the whole earth. And I'm a guy who believes every inch of the earth was underneath water, all the way up to above Mount Everest. And then after the waters receded, after the rains stopped, and eventually when the boat that Noah built settles on dry land, Noah comes out of the boat and he offers a sacrifice to God. And it's Noah's way of saying, God, you spared my life. God, my family is still alive today only because of you. Every other human being on earth has died in this flood. We're still alive because of you. And Noah offers this sacrificial offering as a way to thank God for what he did. When God sees Noah's sacrifice, God is pleased. And God enters into a covenant. But listen to this. He doesn't just enter into a covenant with Noah. He enters into a covenant with Noah's family and every child that will ever be born into Noah's family, which includes you and me, because Noah and his family are the only human beings left alive. So all of us can trace our ancestry. You can trace your DNA back to Noah and his family. And the Bible gives us this promise that God makes to Noah. And it's this Bible promise about the rainbow that I want you to memorize. So I'm about to put one verse from the Bible on the screens, and I want you to make a commitment. Will you personally memorize this? Would you join with the rest of Two Cities Church and memorize this one Bible verse this week? And parents, if you have children, will you memorize this? Will you teach your children to memorize this one verse of the Bible? Here it is on the screen, Genesis chapter 9, verse 16. When I see the rainbow in the clouds, this is God speaking, I will remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth. Genesis 9:16. Now I want you to notice something about this Bible verse. God is making a promise, and the promise is, of course, to Noah, who he's communicating this promise to, but this promise is to all creatures. It's to insects and animals. It's to the plants that were underwater. It's to the birds and the fish, and you and I. This promise is for everybody. This eternal covenant, as long as time exists, God says, I will never again wipe every living thing off the earth by water. If you go to the end of the book, the end of the Bible, he does have a punishment for the earth. And in the end, it's going to be fire instead of water. But God says, I'm going to prove to you that I will never again wipe everything off the earth. And I'll prove it by this very strange occurrence. You can see it in the skies. It's called a rainbow. Now, if you want to know what a rainbow is, there's actually some physics involved here. It takes sunlight, water, and physics. And I know what you're thinking, because I am too. Oh, I hate physics. I don't really want to understand the physics of a rainbow. But I think if you watch this short video all the way to the end, you'll find that there's something really amazing about the kind of rainbows that you and I see, God's eternal covenant promise to Noah and to every human being that ever comes after Noah. Check this video out, will you?
A rainbow exists because of light, water, and a little bit of physics. Let's start with sunlight. It looks white. Now, to some that seems like the absence of color, but thanks to Isaac Newton, we know that white light is really the sum of all visible wavelengths, from short to long, and all the colors in between. It makes you wonder, if there are colors in between other colors, then how many colors is a rainbow really made of? Anyway, so we've got light, and now we need water. On a rainy or misty day, the sky is filled with tiny droplets. They aren't quite as small as the droplets in clouds, though, which is why we don't have awesome looking clouds. Well, some of you might be saying, but Joe, I've seen a rainbow in a cloud before. Well, that's not really a rainbow, but we'll talk about that another time. Those suspended liquid prisms are surface tension on its smallest scale, and the droplets are pulled into the shape of a sphere. Now, each one can catch sunlight and become its own part of the rainbow factory. Here's where we add in the physics. Sunlight starts by entering a raindrop from behind you. The light goes from one medium, air, into another, water, and that causes it to bend slightly thanks to a process called refraction. Different wavelengths of light bend at different angles, so this causes the white light to separate. The bent sunlight then reflects off the back of the raindrop and refracts again on the way out. When we measure the angle between the light that went in and the red light that comes out, the answer is 42 degrees. So how many drops does it take to make a rainbow? Well, a lot, because each color exits at a different angle. One raindrop will send red light into your eye, and another drop will send violet light. The same thing happens with all the colors in between, each coming from their own droplet. And what about the shape? I mean, we call it a rainbow for a reason. It's not a rain line or a rain zigzag. See, you and your eyes are at the apex of a huge half cone, and at the other end is the water that makes the rainbow. This gives a rainbow that curved shape we all know and love. Everything that you see is because that light is coming back right to where you are. No one else is experiencing exactly the same rainbow as you.
Did you hear what this scientist said about rainbows? Every single human being on the earth, they experience their own personal rainbow. No two people ever experience a rainbow the same way because of your relationship to the sun and to water. Somebody standing right next to you will see a slightly different rainbow than you do. Meaning, every rainbow that every human being has ever seen is a unique promise from God to you personally. And when you see a rainbow, it is proof that there's a God in heaven, who loves you, who wants to enter into a relationship with you. That's the word covenant. And not only that, but he wants to do good or give you good gifts. That's his covenant of grace. So now I want you to do a little physics experiment in the backyard or in the front yard. If you have a garden hose, I'm going to put an exercise for you to do on the screens, and then I want you to talk about it as a family. Here's what I'd like for you to do as we get ready to close this episode. I want you to create your own rainbow. You create your own rainbow on a sunny day by taking the garden hose out and spraying water in as fine of a mist as you can up into the sky and standing at the right angle so that you can see that water, the sunlight being reflected through that or refracted through that, those fine mists of water. I want you to create your own rainbow this week on a sunny day. And then I want you to keep this in mind. God buried a promise. Listen to my words very carefully. He buried a promise, not a pot of gold, at the end of every rainbow. And his promise is, I'm never again going to flood the whole earth with water. That, Noah, you can take to the bank. And here's my proof to you that I will never flood this whole earth with water again. I'll prove it. I'll prove you my promise when you see that rainbow in the skies. I want you, instead of looking for a pot of gold, I want you to look for the God of promise every time you see a rainbow in the skies. I hope you have a great time doing this little exercise and imagining what Noah saw when Noah saw that first rainbow in the skies after he came out of the boat. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. God bless.